I'm researching podcasts within the context of AI literacy and entrepreneurial messaging. My questions ask, vaguely speaking, how top technology podcasts frame AI, what motivates the creators in their content, and how does that content interact with the public sphere? This study is grounded in the podcast as practice model, which conceptualizes podcasting as a set of communicative and professional practices enacted by the creators rather than as a medium defined solely by technological features or genre conventions. The analysis is informed by media sociology as the framework, examining how creator motivations, production routines, and institutional contexts shape their podcast practices within kind of the emerging AI technology niche. In existing theories of podcast intimacy, parasocial relationships, and participatory community provide the theoretical expectations against which my findings are evaluated. And while scholarship on creator economy and entrepreneurial media provides additional context for understanding how the professional incentives influence the podcast production and audience relationships. Since I work often within podcast communication, I tend to go towards journalism, radio, audio, and social media focused journals. For example, the Journal of Radio and Audio Media, or Journalism in Media. Now, you can find most related journals for your field by looking at your class reading list, asking your advisors and professors, and browsing the catalogs in the library. If I search in Communication and Mass Media Complete for podcasting, I can see what journals come up most often. And lastly, when I first started out in this area, I paid close attention to the reference lists on the foundational articles and books that I was reading on this topic. It made it really easy to spot where work was being published more often than I should check out. I keep a handwritten binder with single-page notes per seminal reading within my research agenda. That quickly refreshes me on the purpose, context, method, applications, and core theory kind of in those sources. I find it faster to flip through my binder to locate the citation that I need than opening up all of my files. Also, this binder was created in preparation for my doctoral comprehensive exams, which only allowed hard copy notes in the room. Honestly though, the process of handwriting and creating this binder was a form of productive studying that really helped me lock in on knowing this core content. Of course, you could start building your digital notebook now with great search functionality in a variety of apps. I just haven't converted my notes to a digital format yet, and once I find the theory in my binder, it's easy for me to go straight to the source of my library of PDFs or these physical books on my shelf to review that material specifically. In a project where I explored assistive technologies within libraries and museums, I actively tailored the density of the citations in different areas to meet the audience. Now, I was focused on a journal for accessibility in kind of applied engineering systems, while my personal literature review was heavy in all areas: accessibility history, library museum studies, AI and emerging technologies for service. I provided the most citations and explanations in the final article around library and museum studies use of assistive tech. The accessibility section was quite brief and highlighted only the most current works and seminal readings, because the audience is already familiar with that aspect of the field, but they wouldn't necessarily know the conversation happening in library and museum accessibility specifically. Now, for that same reason, I cited only the foundations of the applied engineering and universal human design concepts to show that I am entering this conversation, but recognizing that the readers are already highly familiar with that content. I tend to use Consensus AI for this task because it provides a strong introductory explainer of kind of the published state, of works and research related to my research questions or new project topics. Remember that consensus is not a university approved or protected product, so do not provide any personal information or upload potentially copyrighted, including your own intellectual property and papers or sensitive documents into this prompt, into this site. Now, this is usually my first step to get a sense of the current conversation in the field. Here's my actual consensus dashboard, and in this chat, I wanted to understand the state of the field for a project on AI podcasters. I started by just copying my research questions as the prompt. This tool is designed to create a literature overview and summary with the citations linked that you can actually go click on, kind of interact with, and locate to different extents. I find the output most useful in two ways. First, I get a pretty clear picture of the themes, well-established areas, and gaps, kind of with the keywords to continue my then traditional search strategies and where to read further. And second, I have a great reference list just to get started on, with the names of authors to look up who clearly write in this space, journals to search that publish in this space, and these specific articles to actually go read. No, and this is super important, I never, ever, ever, ever cite directly from this high-level overview that's provided. My next step is always to search in the library for the references provided and download the actual work to read for myself. I have found, in all the times I've kind of used this tool, that 3 or 4 out of every 10 references cannot be located within the library databases, and it's usually because the sources are either sort of a self-published type of PDF that it was able to just kind of pull out on the web. Often it's something like a student put their class paper on their portfolio, or like their department published it, or the publication itself is from a sketchy predatory journal. So for every source, I make sure that I can get the full paper, and I look into the publication itself. Now, some of the signs of, maybe a sketchy journal include that it isn't being indexed in our library's main communication and social science databases. So that happens like when you have a hard time even finding the source in our library search and materials. Other signs are fast review timelines. So on the journal's, website submission guidelines that might promise, the authors that time to publication is only weeks from submission instead of usually months. And I also look for a high quantity of volumes. Like if you notice, wow, this journal is publishing new content, every single month, rather than, more typical, just longer quarterly styles and cadence. Whenever I notice those flags, I personally immediately throw out that source from my list, just because of the concerns for the rigor and the legitimacy of what was published. But again, 60% of the articles are legit, peer-reviewed, actually really helpful sources to read and look into.
Thank you for watching. This has been a production from the Kramer Family Library. Visit us for help with all of your research, sources, reading, and project needs.